Hello dear students of class 11th. As you know, we have discussed so far the first important chapter of human physiology, that is digestion and absorption. Today we are going to start another chapter of human physiology. That's again very important part of human physiology, that is respiration, human respiration. And in human respiration we are first supposed to discuss the anatomy of human respiratory system. So without wasting time, let me come to the point. My topic is human respiratory system. So you can see on the board my topic is respiratory system, but I will give the special emphasis to the human respiratory system. Let's start. So this human respiratory system, it starts from the nose. The first important structure of the human respiratory system is nose, right, which is connected with the external environment, and that is the first structure which is responsible for the inhalation of the fresh air, right. So this nose, how it is connected to the external environment? This nose is connected to the external environment by means of two openings. There are two openings, right, and these two openings of the nose are called as nostrils. These are called nostrils, or you can call nares. So these are called nares or nostrils. So this is the nose, right, part of the respiratory system, respiratory tract, and this nose is connected to the outside by means of these two openings, paired opening, right, and these are called nostrils, and these nostrils are connected to the external environment. That is why these are called external nostrils. So these are called external nostrils, right. Now these external nostrils are opening into two cavities or two chambers. There are two chambers, one on the right side, another is on the left side. So these two nares or these two nostrils, external nostrils, they open into another structure of the respiratory tract, that is known as nasal cavities. And let me tell you, there are two nasal cavities in the nose of a human individual, right. So two nasal cavities. There are two nasal cavities. One is right, another is left, right. And these two nasal cavities are separated. How they are separated? If they are two, but apparently there is only one nose, right, with two external nostrils. Now inside there are two chambers, one from this side, another from this side. How they are separated? These two nasal cavities are separated by a septum, and that septum is known as nasal septum. That's known as nasal septum. So here is a nasal septum inside, right, that is separating the right nasal cavity from the left nasal cavity. And this nasal septum, anteriorly it is cartilaginous. There is a cartilage, right, Anteriorly there is cartilage. It is cartilaginous in nature. This tip of the nose is cartilage, but posteriorly this nasal septum is supported by two bones. There are two bones of the skull which support this nasal septum, and these two bones are ethmoid bone. This is one of the bone of the skull, and another bone that supports the nasal septum is known as vomer bone. These are the two bones which support the nasal septum. What is nasal septum, guys? I told you there are two nasal cavities, right and left, and these two nasal cavities are separated by a septum, that's known as nasal septum. And this nasal septum anteriorly is cartilaginous. It's having a cartilage. The tip is cartilaginous. And posteriorly here you can see my nose, right. So this this posterior end of the nasal septum is bony in nature. It's not cartilage here, it's bone. There are two bones of the skull which support this nasal septum. One is ethmoid bone, another is vomer bone. These are the bones of the skull. When we discuss the various bones of the skull, there are many bones in the skull, 29, and then among them one of them is ethmoid, another is vomer, which are the supportive structures of nasal septum. Right now, if we show the diagrammatically one of these nasal cavities, I cannot show the both on this two-dimensional board, so let me draw one nasal cavity so that I can discuss its various structures on the board, right? So that I can show you the various regions of the nasal cavity. Let's say this is the diagram of a human, right? And in this diagram, let me show, this is nose for example, and here it is the buccal cavity, this is mouth and all that, right? This is neck. So if you look at this diagram on the board, this is the nasal chamber. Let me say this is the part of the bone which is separating the nose from the skull, right? And this is here one more partition, that is the hard and soft palate which is separating the buccal cavity from the nasal cavity. So this is the nasal cavity, guys. So let me label here, it is nasal cavity. This is one of the nasal cavity, and this is the nose with two external nostrils. Now in each nasal cavity, now let's talk about each nasal cavity. They are both same in structure and function. So in each nasal cavity there are three regions. Each nasal cavity is divided into three regions. There are three regions of each nasal cavity. There are three regions of nasal cavity. One is this anterior portion, another is this middle portion, and the last one is this posterior portion, where the nasal cavity opens to the throat or pharynx, right? So yes, each nasal cavity is having how many regions, guys? Three regions. First is this anterior region, that is this one. This is known as vestibular part. This is known as vestibular part. Vestibular part. Another is this one, that is the middle one. This is known as ventilatory part. Respiratory part also. Respiratory part, okay. Respiratory part. And the last one, that is this posterior portion here, it is known as olfactory part. Olfactory part. So how many regions are there? Vestibular part, let me label in the diagram. This is vestibular. You can show the you can see the arrow. And this is the middle one here. This is the respiratory part, okay. And this is the posterior part. This is the olfactory part. So these are the three regions of nasal cavity. So in each nasal cavity, whether it's from this side or from this side, each nasal cavity is having these three regions: vestibular part, respiratory part, olfactory part. Now in the vestibular part, if we see, in the vestibular part there are hairs. This part is lined by the hairs. Hairs are there, right? And these hairs, they usually help in trapping the dust particles. So they help in trap dust particles. The inhaled air must contain some dust particles, that contains dust particles. So these vestibular hairs, they help in trapping the dust particles. They do not let them to enter the other parts of the nasal cavity and into the pharynx, right? Now if we see this one, this respiratory part, if we see this is red in color. This is reddish, or we can say pinkish in color. If we look at this, right? Why it is reddish or pinkish in color? Because of the presence of the blood. And what we see here in the respiratory part, there are some superficial blood vessels. In the respiratory part, there are some superficial blood vessels. There are some superficial blood vessels, right? And these superficial blood vessels impart a red color to the respiratory part. But the question is, why these blood vessels are superficial here? Why these blood vessels are superficial in the middle part of the nasal cavity? Because if there, for example, cool air, if for example the cool air enter the nose, enter the nasal cavity, that should not reach in the freezed form, in the cold form, in the lungs, right? That is problematic for the lungs, that is devastating for the lungs. So before that air reach to the lungs, that should be warmed here, so that is conditioned here. So for the conditioning and the warmth of that cool air, we have this superficial blood vessel in the respiratory part, and some heat is evolving from the blood that helps to warm the cool air which is entering the nasal cavity from the outside, right? So this respiratory part, which is supplied with these superficial blood vessels, helps in conditioning of the air, helps in warming the air before that reach to the lungs. Now come to the last part, that is called olfactory part. Guys, this is not the part of the respiration. This is the part which is responsible for something different function, that is one of the senses of the human, that is known as olfaction, that's known as smelling power, right? So in this part, if you look at this part, for example in the diagram, in this part there are some receptors, there are some neurons, bipolar neurons, and these bipolar neurons in this part are called as olfactory receptors. And you guys very much know that we do not use the nose only for the inhalation, not only for the inspiration, we also use the nose, nasal cavity, nasal chamber for the smelling, for the olfaction. So it is the last part, it is the posterior part of the nasal cavity where some olfactory receptors are present, some bipolar neurons are present, which perceive the different types of chemicals, which can recognize the smell, fragrance of different types of chemicals which are in the vaporized form, right, which enter the nasal cavity along with the inhaled air, right? So this is all about the nasal cavity. So I started the respiratory system of the human beings with nose with two openings called nostrils, called external nostrils, which open into the nasal cavities. There are two nasal cavities separated by a septum, nasal septum, which is cartilaginous anteriorly, posteriorly supported by some bones. And in each nasal cavity there are three parts. The anterior one is vestibular part lined by the hairs, and respiratory part, that is reddish in color because of superficial blood vessel, helps in conditioning the air, warming the cool air. And the olfactory part helps in the smell, it helps in the smell, that means it is responsible for the perception of smell, right? Anyways, now overall if you see this nasal cavity, the walls of the nasal cavity, whether it is right or left, in the nasal cavity it is lined by the epithelium. This nasal cavity is lined by the epithelium, and this nasal cavity, this wall of the nasal cavity is lined by the epithelium, and this epithelium is having many mucus cells. There are many mucus cells, mucus producing cells, right? And this epithelium and its mucus cells further help in trapping the various types of germs, various types of dust particles, right? So that they cannot enter into the pharynx and then into the trachea, that they cannot go to the other parts of the respiratory system. So this mucus which is sometimes increased when there are respiratory infections in the body, when there are upper respiratory tract infections in the body, this mucus is sometimes coagulated here, it accumulates here, and that sometimes is paradoxically irritating for the body, because at one end that helps to trap these dust particles and all that, eliminates the infectious agents, but on the other side that blocks this respiratory tract, obstructs this respiratory tract to some extent. So that is the another interesting thing, right? So there are mucus cells in the in this nasal cavity. So each nasal cavity is lined by this epithelium with some mucus cells. Now so far as the surface area is concerned, there is a lot of surface area in the nasal cavity, because this is the first entry for the inhaled air, along with many infectious agents, pathogens and microbes can enter. So there is a lot of surface area for the warming of for warming the cool air, for filtration of this inhaled air, right? So this area, that is surface area, the surface area of the each nasal cavity is increased by some bony ridges. So on the lateral walls of the nasal cavity there are three bony ridges which have provided the increased surface area to the nasal cavity. So what are these three bony ridges in this nasal cavity? For example, if I like to show, so here are three nasal conchae or bony ridges which have increased the surface area. You can see them. This is the topmost, this is middle, and this is the lower one. So this is the superior, this is the middle one, this is the inferior. So how many? There are three bony ridges. There are three bony ridges in each nasal cavity. There are three bony ridges in each nasal cavity which have increased the surface area of the nasal cavity, and these three bony ridges are called as nasal conchae. Concha is singular, conchae is plural. So these are three in number. Three nasal conchae are there, and these three nasal conchae are, one is superior, we can say superior nasal conchae, we have the middle, and the last is inferior nasal conchae. So these are the three nasal conchae, these are the three bony ridges which have increased the surface area in the nasal cavity for the warming of cool air and for the filtration of the dust containing air, right? So this is all about the nasal cavity. What are the different structures in each nasal cavity? Now each nasal cavity is having an internal opening with the help of which it can open into the pharynx, it can open into the throat, right? So there are not only the external nares, there are not only the external nostrils. In humans there are internal nares as well, there are internal nostrils as well, with the help of which each nasal cavity opens into the pharynx. So we can say, let's move ahead, we can say each nasal cavity, opens into pharynx by internal nares. And I told you in the digestive system, in the alimentary canal, these internal nares are closed at the time of swallowing by a flap in the soft palate. That flap in the soft palate of the buccal cavity is known as uvula, and this uvula helps to close these internal nares at the time of swallowing. Otherwise the food that enter the buccal cavity will move towards the nasal cavities and come out of the nose, right? That sometimes happens at the time of choking or hiccup, but generally not, because it is closed, right? It never makes any mistake, generally doesn't make any mistake. So these internal nares help the nasal cavities to open into the another structure that's known as pharynx. And so far as pharynx is concerned, now let's come to the another part of the respiratory system, that is pharynx. But I told you that this pharynx, it is the part of respiratory system as well as it is the part of digestive system, because this pharynx it receives the inhaled air, and it also receives the ingested food by the mouth, right? So both this air and the food is received by the pharynx. So it is a common part of digestive system and the respiratory system as well. But right now we are talking about the respiratory system. So let us discuss this pharynx as a part of respiratory system, the part of upper respiratory tract. But we need not to explain the pharynx again, because this is already done in the previous lecture. If you will watch the video of digestive system, alimentary canal, in the alimentary canal we have explained, we have thrown light on the pharynx, what are the various structures of the pharynx. But I would like to remind you that this pharynx is also known as throat simply, and in pharynx there are again three different regions. Actually it is a one part, it is a one structure, but from the descriptional point of view, right, there are various things in this pharynx, there are various structures in the pharynx. So from the descriptional point of view, this pharynx is divided into three parts, 1, 2, and let's say this is the third one. So this pharynx is divided into three parts, and if you have watched the last video of digestive system alimentary canal, what were the three parts? The first was the nasopharynx, the part which lies behind the nasal cavities, nasal chambers, and another part was the oropharynx, and oropharynx is the part which is lying behind the buccal cavity, this part, and the last part that is lying in the neck region almost, and that is above the trachea, the part is known as laryngopharynx. This was the last part, this is the third part of the pharynx. So this pharynx throat is divided into nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx, right? And if you remember, I told you in that very lecture that this nasopharynx, oropharynx and in the laryngopharynx, throughout the walls of the lateral and the posterior anterior walls of this pharynx, there are some lymphoid tissues, and those lymphoid tissues are called tonsils, right? Different types of tonsils are there. And I also told you that these different tonsils, these lymphoid tissues which contain the lymph and lymphocytes, these tonsils are arranged in the form of a ring-like manner, ring-like structure, and that ring of tonsils in the pharynx, is known as Waldear's ring. And this is a very, very important protective ring in the pharynx, because it contains lot of protective things, lot of immunological molecules, immune cells as well, right, which helps to kill all those pathogens and invaders and microbes which enter along the inhaled air or along with the food, right? So this is a protection here in the pharynx in the form of Waldear's ring, or in the form of tonsils, different types of tonsils, right? Is it clear? Now if you have any confusion here, you can please watch the previous video, I mean the video regarding the digestive system alimentary canal, and you will understand in details the different structures of pharynx and its functions as well. Anyways, let's move ahead. So the first part we have discussed so far is nasal, nose, nostrils, nasal cavities, nasal septum, and now the pharynx, which is divided into nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. Now, so far as the respiratory tract is concerned, I mean the passageways, so far as the respiratory tract is concerned, the most important part of this respiratory tract is trachea, that is windpipe. The most important part of the respiratory tract is the windpipe, trachea, which begins from this pharynx. These are the two tubes, which begins from this, this pharynx, and most of them is present in the neck region. Then they go to the thoracic and maybe abdominal region, like food pipe, esophagus, right? So here we have the two tubes. First you understand, one is the anterior and another is the posterior, and this anterior tube is trachea and the posterior tube is esophagus, right? This pharynx contains the inhaled air. This inhaled air enter the trachea, and the ingested food in the buccal cavity that enter in the esophagus, and both are having openings. In both the tubes there are openings. There is opening of the trachea, which receives the air, and there is opening of what? Esophagus, that receives the food. And this opening of trachea, the uppermost, that is entry point of trachea, is known as glottis. The entry for the trachea is glottis, right? And the entry point for the esophagus food pipe is known as glut, right? So these are the two openings for these tubes which receive. One is receiving the inhaled air, that is the anterior one, that's trachea, and this one is the food pipe, that is esophagus. Let me tell you, you can understand, right? And the opening of this is known as glut. Now, the uppermost part of this trachea in which this opening is present, that is known as glottis, is known as larynx. Yes, we have nothing to do with the esophagus and the glut. We have already discussed this part, right, which is the part of the digestive system, alimentary canal, esophagus. Now presently we are concerned with the trachea, with the respiratory tract. So the uppermost part where this glottis, where this opening of the trachea is present, is known as larynx. It is also known as voice box. It is also known as Adam's apple. So let us discuss the first part of the respiratory tract, that is known as larynx. So let me show you here roughly where this larynx is present. So this is the broader part of the trachea. This is the larynx. Let's say this is larynx, right? So this larynx is present here, and then we have the trachea. This is trachea. Let's say this is trachea, and then it bifurcates here in the thoracic cavity into two branches, and these two branches enter into the lungs. So let me draw roughly. So these are the two lungs. I will draw later the diagram of the lungs, right? Anyways, right. So this trachea, this is the trachea here, guys. This is the trachea. This is the trachea, and this is the first part of the trachea, uppermost part, that is known as larynx. And in the same structure, larynx, this is the opening here. This opening is known as, yes, this opening is known as glottis. Glottis, and over this glottis, there is a flap. There is a flap. There is a flap-like structure. That flap-like structure is known as epiglottis. Epiglottis, right? And right now we need to discuss this part, that is the first part, its opening and its cover, its flap, that's known as epiglottis. So this is the first part of the respiratory tract, upper respiratory tract, that is known as larynx. So let's write here larynx. 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 This is the first entry point of the respiratory tract. Now this larynx is also known as Adam's apple in males, not in females. It's known as Adam's apple because we can feel it from the outside as a protuberance, as a prominence in the neck region in case of males, not in case of females. Why? We will explain. So first, this larynx, it is also known as Adam's apple. It is also known as voice box. Why? Because it is not only the part of respiratory tract, that is, it is one of the most important function, vital function, but besides this, as a part of respiratory system, it is also very important for the production of voice. It is voice producing organ in case of mammals, right? This larynx. So it is also known as voice box. Now, so far as two sexes are concerned, that is males and females, up to the age of puberty, there is no difference in the size of the larynx, whether it's male or female. There is no difference in the size in the larynx up to the age of puberty. But after the age of puberty, the size of the larynx is different in the males and females. That is why this word is here, that is Adam's apple, because it is enlarged, it is increased in size in case of males than in females. So this is one of the secondary sexual characters in males, that the size of their larynx is bigger than the size of the larynx of females, right? This is very, very important thing. Now, so we can say, let me tell you again, in case of males, the size of the larynx is bigger than the size of larynx in case of females. Now, so far as the structure of this larynx is concerned, so far as structure is concerned, anatomy is concerned, this larynx in its structure, in its form, right, there are many things, but from the structural point of view, this larynx is made up of 9 pieces of, cartilage. It is made up of 9 pieces of cartilage. So far as its structure is concerned, this larynx is made up of 9 pieces of cartilage. Besides cartilage, there are some muscles in it, there are some ligaments in it, and there is also a bone which is supporting the larynx. There is a bone also which is supporting the larynx, but structural, from the structural point of view, its structure is mainly because of these 9 pieces of cartilage, right? Now, in order to see these 9 pieces of cartilage and some other supportive structures of the larynx, we have to see its two views. We have to see its structure from its anterior view and its structure from the posterior view. Let's say, for example, this is the box, right, having space inside. What is there, I will tell you later, but this is the anterior view of this box called the larynx, and this is the posterior view of this. But in the diagram, for example, you will draw here, you can see only the anterior view, not the posterior view. Then I have to draw the posterior view as well. So let's try to understand the various cartilages and the various structures of this larynx. For this, we will draw first a diagram here that will show us the structures in its anterior view. Then we will draw a next diagram that will show us the structures present in its posterior side, right, posterior side of the larynx. So let me draw. So let me rub this. So guys, this is the, let me write here first, that is figure the anterior. In this figure, I will show some structures which are present on the anterior side of larynx. So this is anterior view of larynx, anterior view of larynx, right? So this is the structure here. This is the structure. Right? Here is a bone which is actually supporting structure for this larynx. This is not cartilage here, by the way. So this is only one bone present here in the neck region, and it is connected with this cartilage, right? And this is the first cartilage. Let me tell you, this is, let me label, this is thyroid cartilage, 1 in number, single. Thyroid cartilage is the largest cartilage of the larynx, thyroid cartilage, right? And below this thyroid cartilage, there is a ring shaped cartilage, signet ring shaped cartilage, signet ring shaped cartilage, and this cartilage is known as cricoid cartilage, cricoid cartilage. So these are the two cartilage. I was talking about the 9 pieces of cartilage. So this is the first one, this is the first cartilage, and the largest one, that is called thyroid cartilage, and this is the second cartilage in the structure of the larynx. Now this is not any cartilage here, this is actually the membrane here, this is the membrane here, right? This is the membrane here, and this membrane is known as thyroid membrane. This is known as thyroid membrane. This is known as thyroid membrane, which is connecting this thyroid cartilage of the larynx with a bone. This is the only bone here, and this bone is known as hyoid bone. We have already discussed this bone, mentioned this bone. This bone, hyoid bone, it is also known as tongue bone. Why? Because it provides the attachment surfaces for the muscles of the tongue. Tongue is posteriorly attached, fixed, and that is fixed with the tongue bone as well as with the soft palate, right, by frenulum. So this is the bone which is lying here in the neck region, that is called the hyoid bone, tongue bone. And I told you that time and right now as well that this bone, hyoid bone, is actually the bone of skull, but present here almost outside the skull in the neck region and supporting this larynx. It is the supportive structure for the larynx and also provide the attachment surface for the muscles of the tongue. Anyways, so this is hyoid bone, this is thyroid membrane, this is thyroid cartilage, and this is one more cartilage, that is cricoid cartilage. And this cartilage and this cartilage, these two cartilages are also connected by a ligament. This is ligament here. Ligament is a connection between bone and bone, but this is also connection between cartilage and cartilage. So this is the ligament that's known as thyroid ligament. This is known as thyroid ligament, right? But so far as the cartilages are concerned, that we mentioned, there are 9 pieces of cartilage. This is the anterior view of the larynx. Here from this end, there is the part of the trachea. This is trachea, let's say, right? So in this view, anterior view, you have seen only 2 cartilages, this thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage, only 2. This is single, this is also single, so far as number is concerned, right? So this is the anterior view of this box, what you known as larynx. Now in order to see the other cartilages and other structures of this larynx, we have to see the posterior view of this larynx. And let me tell you, in the anterior view of the larynx, we can also show here the uppermost cartilage that is acting as a flap for the entry of this, larynx, right? Here the opening, I told you, the opening of this larynx is known as glottis, which is also the entry point for the trachea, and over that glottis there is a flap, there is a cover that's known as epiglottis. You can show here the part of the epiglottis. So this is, for example, here epiglottis. Okay, let me draw here. This is epiglottis. So this is epiglottis. So this is one more cartilage. This is also cartilage, epiglottis, elastic cartilage. So this is also singly numbered. So overall you can see the 3 cartilages out of 9. One is this thyroid cartilage, which is the largest in males particularly, that's why the Adam's apple, and cricoid cartilage is another one, and you can also count this one, that is the epiglottis, which is overall flap cover which closes the larynx trachea at the time of swallowing, so that the food may not enter into the trachea, right? Otherwise they will be choking. That sometimes happens, right? So how many cartilages you have seen so far? Thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, and now I have included one more, that is this epiglottis, which is the first entry point for the respiratory tract. I hope you have understood. Now in order to see its posterior view, we need to draw another diagram. So let me rub this one. If you want to draw this diagram, if you want to understand this diagram, you need to pause the video, you need to rewind the video so that you can understand. Come on guys, go ahead. Now let's draw the posterior view of larynx. So let me write first, the figure is posterior view of larynx. Fine, posterior view of larynx. So this is the posterior view of the larynx, right? So let me draw again here this flap. The flap is known as epiglottis. We have already included this in the anterior view. Now we have to see some other types of cartilages. So this is again the part, this is again the part of the larynx, but the posterior view right now. And with this is the epiglottis. With this epiglottis there are some cartilages. This is one, and from this end there is another, right? These are the 2 cartilages in the posterior part of the larynx. These 2 cartilages we have not included so far. So these 2 cartilages are 2 pyramidal shaped cartilages. These are 2 pyramidal shaped cartilage, and these 2 cartilages 1 and 2 paired are called actinoid cartilages. These are known as actinoid cartilage. These are known as actinoid cartilage, right? ARTENOID, actinoid cartilages. So these are 2 in number. Fine. Now there are 2 small cartilages which are present at the apexes of these actinoid cartilages. Here we have 2 conical cartilages, again very small cartilages, and these 2 up just above the actinoid cartilages, and these 2 small cartilages are known as corniculate cartilages. These These are also known as cartilages of Santorini. These are also known as cartilages of Santorini, and these are also called carniculate cartilages. Carniculate cartilages, right? So these are 2 in number, arytenoid cartilages in the posterior view of the larynx, and here we have the 2 small conical cartilages called as carniculate cartilages. And there are again 2 rod-shaped, small rod-shaped cartilages which are connecting this epiglottis, the flap, with the arytenoid cartilages, and these 2 small rod-shaped cartilages are called as cuneiform cartilages. Cuneiform cartilage. Fine. So these are also 1 and 2 in number. These are also 2 in number. So from this side, from the posterior side, if you count, these are 2. Arytenoid cartilages are 2 in number. Carniculate cartilages are 2 in number, and the cuneiform cartilages are also 2 in number. So total is 6. And from the anterior view, if you count the epiglottis, thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, they are 3 in number. Total number is 9. So these are the 9 pieces of cartilage which are the working structures in the larynx, in the voice box, right? So they constitute the overall structure of this voice box, what you call as larynx, its anterior view and its posterior view. First diagram was the anterior view of the larynx. This diagram is the posterior view of the larynx, and in this diagram, let me repeat, we have seen 3 important cartilages: arytenoid cartilages 2 in number, carniculate cartilages 2 in number, and these 2 that are called as cuneiform cartilages. Now these different cartilages of this box called voice box or larynx are connected, are linked by means of ligaments and by means of muscles. There are 2 things associated with these cartilages. There are 2 things associated with the cartilages of the larynx, that is muscles, laryngeal muscles, and the ligaments. So there are muscles associated with them, right? And there are ligaments. So how these different structures of the larynx are assembled? Because of these 2 things, that is muscles, or the cartilages of the larynx, and the ligaments, which are the connections between the 2 cartilages, right? As I have shown the connection between the thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage. So overall, these all structures, come on guys, overall these all structures which are present on the anterior side of this box and from the posterior side of this box, they constitute this voice box or this larynx, right? Now, which is the very important entry point of the respiratory tract. It is connected with the pharynx by means of opening that's known as glottis, and over glottis there is a cartilaginous flap that is known as epiglottis, which generally remains open forever, but at the time of swallowing, right, that closes the entry of the larynx so that the food cannot enter into the trachea, right? That is problematic. Anyways, so this is all about the structure of the larynx. Now, so far as the voice box, as a structure of the voice, as a structure of the voice production, how this voice and what are the structures present in the larynx which are responsible for the production of the voice, let me tell you. Inside this box, this is anterior, this is posterior. Inside this box, there are 2 folds. There are rather 2 pairs of folds, and these 2 pairs of folds inside this voice box called the larynx are called as vocal cords. You have heard about the name. Vocal cords are the structures which are responsible for the production of the voice, right? When these vocal cords vibrate, under the tension, under the pressure of the exhaled air, when the exhaled air from the lungs vibrates, set the vocal cords into vibrations, the voice is produced, and more the vibrations of these vocal cords, more is the pitch frequency of the voice, so forth and so on, right? So we have to talk about, so far as voice production is concerned, we have to talk about 2 important folds inside this box called as voice box, and these folds of mucous membranes are called as vocal cords. So the structures present inside this larynx which are responsible for the production of voice are called vocal cords. And let me tell you, there are 2 pairs of vocal cords. There are 2 pairs of vocal cords in the larynx. 2 pairs of vocal cords in larynx, inside the larynx, right? And what is the nature of these vocal cords? These vocal cords, these are actually the folds of mucous membranes. These are folds of mucous membranes lined by the stratified squamous epithelium. This is a type of epithelium, right? This is a type of epithelium present in the vocal cords. So these folds of mucous membranes with stratified squamous epithelium constitute the vocal cords, and there are two pairs of vocal cords. One pair is upper vocal cords, another is lower vocal cords, right? So far as the function of the vocal cords is concerned, these are the lower vocal cords which vibrate and results in the production of voice. Upper vocal cords are not so vibratile structures. That is why the upper vocal cords are called false vocal cords. So we sometimes classify these two pairs of vocal cords as upper vocal cords and upper vocal cords are called false vocal cords. They are more supportive in function than the production of voice cords. So false vocal cords and lower vocal cords are called as true vocal cords. They are called true vocal cords because these are the structures, that is true vocal cords, lower vocal cords, which vibrate under the tension of the exhaled air which is exhaled from the lungs, right? And they vibrate. When they vibrate, they are set into vibrations, they results the production of the voice. So how the voice is produced, you please try to understand, listen carefully. These vocal cords inside the larynx, when the exhaled air set these vocal cords, let's say inside this box is vocal cords, when these vocal cords are set into vibrations, that results in the production of the voice, right? Now if I will show you, for example, one pair, for example, this true vocal cords, that is lower vocal cords. Let's say, for example, in order to make you understand this point, so let's say, for example, this is the part of the larynx, this is this box, right? And inside this box, this is the vocal cord here from this side, and this is the vocal cord from this side. This is only one pair. I have not shown the both pairs, right? So this is vocal cord. Let me write here. These are the vocal cords. Anyways, true vocal cords, lower vocal cords. And when this is trachea below, right? And when the exhaled air reaches here, and these two vocal cords, they are set into vibrations. There is a space in between the two vocal cords, and let me tell you, this space between the two vocal cords is known as rima, R-I-M-A, rima glottis, through which the inhaled air and exhaled air passes, right? So but whenever the inhaled air with the tension, with pressure comes, right, along this rima glottis, these two vocal cords are set into vibrations, and that vibrations of the vocal cords results in the production of voice. Further, there are two things associated with the voice. One is the pitch of the voice, pitch, or you can say frequency of the voice, and another character is the quality of voice, right? Quality of voice. These two things, that is pitch, that is frequency of voice, and quality of voice, are controlled, are determined by the different features of these vocal cords, and some other structures also help in these things. So far as pitch is concerned, frequency is concerned, that mainly depends upon the thickness of these vocal cords. Let me tell you, these vocal cords are thicker in males, heavier in males than females. Again, let me repeat again. These vocal cords are thicker and heavier in males than in females, and obviously they do not vibrate so fast as in males than in females. So that is why in males, the frequency of the pitch of the voice, is low. pitch of voice is low. While in case of females, while the vocal cords are thinner, and lighter, lighter in case of females. That is why the pitch of voice is high. Pitch of frequency of voice is high. In simple language, males cannot cry so high than the females which can cry, right? So because of high pitch of voice. Anyways, so frequency. Now, so far as quality of voice is concerned, this quality of voice is controlled by structures called as resonators, and there are many structures in the buccal cavity, in the pharynx, the muscles of the pharynx as well, which act as resonators, and these are responsible for the determination of quality of voice, right? Different structures, even the paranasal sinuses, that are the spaces in the bones, you know, in the, here we have the ethmoid, sphenoid, and the this vomer bone. Also there are some spaces in these bones what I call as paranasal sinuses. They also helps in the quality of voice. What type of quality? So pitch and quality of voice, these are the two important characteristics associated with the voice. But here we are mainly concerned with the respiratory system, not with the vocal cords as the part of the, you know, voice, as a part of voice production, right? This is another aspect, how the voice is actually produced by these vocal cords. Yeah, this is correct. I mean, due to the expired air, under the tension, these vocal cords are set into the vibrations, right? But there are many phenomena associated with this production of voice, and even so far as the nervous system is concerned, there is the interference of nervous system. Nerves are there and parts of the brain which are concerned with the production of voice, right? Because there are many things associated with the voice where a person is not able to pronounce some words correctly. That is, there are many problems, right? So we are not going into detail in that part, because we are right now concerned with the respiratory system. And I would like to remind you that we are discussing this larynx, where I have also discussed the vocal cords as well, but we are discussing this larynx as a part of respiratory system. And I tried to explain the various cartilages and the various structures of this larynx in the anterior view and the posterior view, right? So this larynx, it is the first part, first entry point, having this opening that's called a glottis, which is covered by the epiglottis, and then this larynx opens into the main important tube, that is windpipe, that is trachea. So the another structure of this respiratory system, respiratory tract, is known as trachea. That's known as trachea. So let's discuss also this one. What is trachea? So larynx, now you have to focus again. Larynx, we have discussed this larynx opens into the part that's known as trachea. Let me show you again. For example, this is again here the larynx, the upper part of the trachea, right? So this is the larynx, and over the larynx there is this flap on its opening, that's called glottis. This flap is known as epiglottis. From this lower end starts this tube, begins this tube, right? This tube is known as trachea, or it is also known as windpipe. So this is known as trachea, this is known as windpipe. And let me tell you, this trachea or this windpipe, it starts from this larynx and then runs, right, into the thoracic cavity, and then finally opens into the lungs. Now this trachea or the windpipe, it is made up of, it contains the C-shaped, it's made up of C-shaped cartilaginous rings. There are C-shaped cartilaginous rings in the trachea. The trachea is made up of C-shaped, that means C-shaped, these are incomplete, these are complete anteriorly, but these are incomplete posteriorly. These are incomplete posteriorly. These C-shaped cartilages are called cartilaginous rings. So this trachea is made up of cartilaginous rings, C-shaped cartilage. It is not a muscular tube like esophagus, which remains collapsed until the food enters the esophagus, but trachea, it's always extended, it's always open, because there is inhalation and exhalation every now and then. So it needs strength as well as flexibility as well, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided both the things, flexibility and as well as the durability, rigidity, strength to this trachea, because that, I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nature has placed these cartilaginous rings in the tube. It's not muscular, it is cartilaginous in nature, and this cartilage is flexible and more having more strength than the muscles, right? So having both these properties, that is flexibility and the strength as well. And it doesn't collapses whether you forcibly inspire or forcibly expire. There is no collapse of the rings of this trachea, right? But so far as the wall of the trachea is concerned, so far as the internal wall of the trachea is concerned, the walls of the trachea, this trachea is lined by an epithelium. There is a type of epithelium in the trachea, that's very, very important. Epithelium part of, type of epithelium. The epithelium which is lining the trachea, right, besides having these cartilaginous C-shaped rings, right? Why these are shaped? Because these are anteriorly complete, posteriorly they are incomplete, because posteriorly there is one more tube that's known as esophagus, that also needs a lot of flexibility and ability of expansion at the time of swallowing, so at the time of peristalsis. So that is why these are C-shaped, incomplete posteriorly. I hope you have understood. Anyways, besides these cartilaginous rings, there is a type of epithelium in the trachea lining the trachea. The epithelium is known as pseudostratified epithelium. Pseudostratified epithelium. And in pseudostratified epithelium, we will explain ahead that in pseudostratified epithelium there are two types of cells. There are always two types of cells in the pseudostratified epithelium, some taller and some shorter cells. It is one layered, it's not multi-layered, but some cells are taller, some cells are shorter. So that is why it is known as pseudostratified epithelium. And the most important thing is, in this pseudostratified epithelium there are two types of cells: ciliated cells and the mucus cells, mucus producing cells. And both these cells are very, very important for blocking the entry of the pathogens, dust, smoke, whatever that comes along with the inhaled air. So first let me talk about the cilia. These cilia, that cilia, wherever there are cilia in the body, now in the trachea right here, these cilia, they beat, ciliary beating, and beating of the cilia, they sweep out the dust particles and the germs also, right? Whatever noxious can enter into the lungs, right? That everything is swept by these cilia towards the pharynx, and what happens, that forms a type of sputum sometimes, right? And that sputum which is swept by the cilia of the trachea is most often enveloped, that is enveloped by the esophagus, and reaches in the stomach where there is gastric juice, and in the gastric juice there is hydrochloric acid that kills all those harmful things, for example germs, right? Or sometimes it is secreted out by the mouth. Okay. Now, so far as this is the function of the ciliated cells, cilia in the trachea. So these cilia, these are very, very important for blocking the entry of the various dust particles, pollutants, pathogens which come along the inhaled air. So they don't allow them to reach the lungs. Second is mucus. Mucus is also very important barrier, as you know, mucus or mucous membranes, wherever they are, this is also very, very important physical, mechanical barrier for the various types of harmful things, whether these are pollutants or pathogens. So that also helps to prevent the entry of these different harmful things into the respiratory tract, into the lungs, right, into the lung alveoli. So their presence, that means ciliated cells and the presence of this mucus, this is very, very important protective mechanism for the respiratory tract, particularly in the upper respiratory tract, right, which block the entry of various invaders, various pathogens, various pollutants into the lung alveoli, right. And we can see, we can overwhelm their functions so far as cilia is concerned if we give examples of, for example, smokers, those who have remained smokers for a long time, and most often we see, so far as the epidemiology of cancer is concerned, lung cancer, whether it is small lung cancer or the large lung cancers are concerned, these are generally the smokers, heavy smokers, chain smokers. Why? Because in smoke, in tobacco smoke, for example, there are some chemicals which slowly and slowly destroy these cilia of the trachea. The chemicals are called ciliotoxins. The chemicals are called ciliotoxins. For example, nicotine is one of them, and these ciliotoxins slowly and slowly, by and by, they kill these cilia, they destroy these cilia. Then these chemicals, which could be prevented by these cilia, they directly enter into the lungs and they are carcinogenic there, they are cancer causing there, right. So this is the importance of these cilia and this mucus in the trachea. So this trachea, it is a tube, it is windpipe, and it begins from this pharynx and then enter into the two lungs, one from the right side, another from left side, right. But it is made up of these cartilaginous rings, not the muscular tube, cartilaginous rings, and besides cartilaginous rings, C-shaped rings, there is this epithelium, that is pseudostratified epithelium with ciliated cells and mucus producing cells. Now at its lower end, at the lower end of this trachea, when it enters the thoracic cavity, when it enters the chest, right, it bifurcates into two branches. It bifurcates into two branches, and these two branches of the trachea which enter the two lungs are known as, these are known as primary bronchi, and like trachea, these are also lined by these same C-shaped cartilaginous rings. There are cartilaginous rings present even in these primary bronchi. Why primary? Because they further divide and redivide into secondary and tertiary bronchi inside the lungs, right. You might have heard about that. So these are the two branches, that is right primary bronchi and the left primary bronchi, which actually enter into the lungs, that we will discuss in our next lecture, right. So these are the two branches which enter into the right lung and into the left lung. So far we have discussed this trachea. Let me add here at this juncture, I would like to say that, you know, this pharynx, pharynx above this larynx, and there is pharynx, this is larynx, okay, this is larynx. Now this is the first half of the trachea, pharynx, this larynx, and this first half of this trachea. This is sometimes, you know, physiologically classified as, considered as the upper respiratory tract. When you talk about the different respiratory infections, you say sometimes there is infection in the, or doctors use these terms, there is an infection in the upper respiratory tract. That means when you say upper respiratory tract, that means infection is somewhere in the upper part of the trachea, or infection is in the larynx, laryngitis for example, or there is infection in the pharynx, right. And now below this, that means below the first half of the trachea, now we have this, the second half of the trachea, we have the primary bronchi, then we have the secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, lung alveoli, lungs, right, that constitutes the lower respiratory tract, that is the lower respiratory tract, right. So this is all about the first half of the first part of the human respiratory system. In our next lecture, in our next video, we will explain the respiratory organs, that means these lungs, and how these primary bronchi which enter into the right and the left lung, how they divide and redivide into smaller branches. Hope you have understood. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed.